Nation, Jackson, Janet's greetings and welcome to your Daily Dose of Donkey with Ginger. It's your boy, the Viking Donkey, coming to you here live in studio with Laskers. If I sound like I'm farther away from the mic, it's probably good for you because I sound quieter. But Laskers is here. Gingy, of course, is here. Gingy, we finally get to hear Laskers' off-season take. How excited are you?
I'm stoked. Laskers, let's hear it.
Oh, yeah, I know so much about the offseason because, I watched the draft and everything. Yeah, that's a complete lie.
Well, the offseason broke down. The Steelers drafted an offensive lineman. Actually, let's make it two. Two offensive linemen early on. A receiver in the third round, possibly a steal in the third round with a linebacker who's missing an ACL and has a lot of knee injuries. We trade away our number one receiver for a cornerback who was very bottom of the barrel last year. And, the whole quarterback conundrum, Laskers. That's your take on that. Brand new looking room. All three white guys are gone to give way to the Russell Wilson, Justin Fields combo that will lead the Steelers to the promised land.
Hey, we got Sierra now.
You're right. They probably have to pay a little less for halftime performances. Gingy, that is something we had never considered here. Is this a cost-saving measure for halftime shows?
Not out of the question, right? I don't know how much was really being invested into halftime shows, though, presently, Donkey, so...
Well, I know that, Styx tends to show up once every other year, right?
We haven't seen Wiz in a long time.
Seen Wiz in
high in California. He's out there hanging with the Snoop D-O-double-G. Yo, he's a Steelers fan. We can bring them both back. Let's go. We got the dynamic duo at quarterback. Let's have the dynamic duo do some God Bless America to start the thing, huh? A little remix, Gingy. How you feeling about that?
I'll take a little Terrible Towel Wave to start us off, though. A little Black and Yellow.
Yeah, there it is. Fair enough. But Laskers, we're here. Do you think the Steelers, as we stand today, are a team that's ready to compete in the AFC with the offseason they've had to date?
My answer to that question is definitely a no. I mean, I do like the adding of Fields, but I don't like the adding of Russell Wilson.
That's a fair way to take it. Gingy, there's something fun I want to get into a little later, but I want to know, is there anything you want to get into here? Steelers topics going around. I mean, Deontay Johnson getting traded and not even knowing who his head coach was. That was a kind of funny one for me. Antonio Brown going bankrupt. All these former Steelers using their inside knowledge and their in-depth take on things to try to keep themselves relevant while no one cares during the offseason. Any of these storylines tickle your fancy?
Space cadet for behavior from Deontay Johnson, but wish him all the best of luck on the field. I don't know. Poor Antonio Brown, right? I mean, the guy... Yeah, I hear you, right? But I'm telling you what, in terms of football, that guy's one of the best I've ever seen. To see him end up in a position like that it's disappointing. Wish it would have ended differently for him, but here we are.
A lot of that was himself, though, you know what I mean?
He
made his decisions.
Mental health is a hell of a thing.
Same with Lev Bell.
Perfect for everything that happened there, okay? And it's clearly Vontaze Burfict's fault. How about the half of the Steelers beat writers saying the Steelers should pursue Juju Smith-Schuster and the other half saying we should avoid him at all costs? I mean... Juju's a guy who had a couple good years with Antonio Brown, but ever since, even when he was on Kansas City, never really has been a needle mover since. And I guess you could argue never really was a needle mover, right? Be a guy, though, you would welcome back, Gingy or Laskers.
I think I'd welcome him back. I think, you're right, he wasn't really a needle mover, but he did still do a good job with the Steelers. Now, what are they going to pay him? He's not worth that much.
Gingy, any thoughts?
Yeah, I really think it goes. I think it goes down to the type of system we're looking at. Do I want to acquire him to be a primary pass catcher? Not exactly. Do I recall him being a heck of a guy off the ball? blocking downfield in this type of offense, that might be useful. Allegedly, the type of offense that allegedly, hypothetically, is going to be put out by Arthur Smith would be benefited by a blocking wide receiver like Juju Smith-Schuster, eh?
Fair enough, fair enough. So the question I have here, because we're at the point of the year where we hear everybody showcasing, everybody looks like a superstar, everybody's going to be the next great thing because OTAs and people look good in practices without pads. Gingy, do you put any stock into OTA practices, or do you just use them as a kind of viewpoint to see maybe where new additions are lining up, or where they foresee players playing, as Roman Wilson getting a lot of snaps as a number 2 wide receiver? Do you take that as more of a count, or do you think the performance in these practices actually matter?
I'm not necessarily looking at performances. I'm looking at day-to-day guys. I think this is where your leaders in the locker room are established at. You know, you sort of get the new team hierarchy established, new team chemistry, get opportunities with new guys at the helm like Russell Wilson to get in there and to get some rhythm with some of his players. See if there's a rhythm that can establish maybe Pickens into a number 1 guy. Very glass half full thinking, but yeah, I don't necessarily put a lot of stock in performances this time of year, and really right up until week 1. Heck, I mean, Kenny Pickett in the preseason, right?
If we would have ran our preseason offense in the regular season, I think you might have seen a decent season. We saw that in the Cincinnati game. We saw that with when Mason Rudolph stepped in and did his thing because we used the middle of the field a little bit. So Gingy kind of walked right into the trap. So we're establishing leadership in OTAs. Then shouldn't Cam Hayward make sure he shows up to these things?
Be nice, right? It'd be nice. I would think so. But this is Steelers culture. You would also think that leaders are there everyday type of guys, right? They don't sit out on Tuesdays and Wednesdays consistently, but that's not what we've been showed.
But veteranosity, dude. I heard this under Clint Hurdle, man. Being a veteran means you're automatically better because you're a veteran, all right? Experience is the key, Gingy. Remember this. We had this conversation yesterday. Experience is the key.
Experience is helpful, and I understand that, but I need some relationship building before that. You got to show the experience, right? You got to at least show that it's there. You can't just pretend that it's there.
Laskers, you're in the dark here, but yesterday, and this is a conversation I want to get into, because I think when we're talking nonsensical Steelers talk, since I know I completely forgot to probably say that at the open, but to keep this nonsensical, Gingy, yesterday we have a conversation about, is the youth or the experience an important factor here? Like, is youth with more upside worth experience that could maybe been there, done that? And I think we had a really good take on both areas, right? I don't think anyone can really say who's right or wrong because only performance can showcase this. But Laskers, essentially, me and Gingy are getting into it and this is what I said. I said, Gingy, tell me the reason why Russell Wilson should be the starter of this team. And Gingy, your response was something along the lines of, well, he gives you the better baseline, right? For lack of a better term. He gives you the baseline of a 9 and 8, right?
Higher floor, lower ceiling.
And then my response to Gingy is, well, if we want to be Super Bowl contenders, isn't it a better chance to take Justin Fields then? Because he gives us a chance of actually being a Super Bowl contender if he's good. But at the same time, if he sucks, we go 3-15 and have a better chance of drafting that guy who makes us a Super Bowl contender. And that's where we were at. But that was just the base of the conversation. I'll let you chime in here on this, Laskers. But there's a part 2 to this that's really interesting. And me and Ginger are going to have that out here in a minute.
I mean, I really think you have to have a balance of rookies or young guys and a balance of veterans. And I personally think Justin Fields gives us the much higher ceiling. And I just don't like when they were talking at the beginning, when the season ended, that they were going to give Kenny a chance for starting, and now we're just admitting that we're not giving anyone a chance to be the starter. It's Russell or bust. I mean, there's no There's no competition at all.
Yeah, me and Gingy had a good conversation about that earlier this offseason about Russell Wilson. Do you really believe Kenny Pickett was going to be given a fair chance when the Steelers came out and said Russell Wilson is our starter over Justin Fields, and everyone in the media seems to think Justin Fields is better than Kenny Pickett? So you're telling me they were going to give the worst quarterback a chance to compete, but not the better quarterback a chance to compete? This reeks of Tomlinism and modern Steelerism, and it reminds me of Clint Hurdle piratisms, where the veteran's the better player no matter what. Even if the young guy shows he's better, the veteran still gets to play, and that worries me. But part two, Gingy, if you recall, we went into this, and we were talking about, does the youth give you a better advantage than the veteran? And Gingy, I'll let you go ahead and have the first chance here to lay out the argument of what makes the veteran the guy who gives you an advantage.
I think the veteran guy gives you the advantage, especially if they have been there, done that. Russell Wilson in particular, which is who we're referring to here, been in the big game, been in the Super Bowl, right? While I still feel like guys like
single-handedly
Justin
lost
Fields,
the Super Bowl.
while guys like Justin Fields have higher ceilings, when they get in that big game, there's growing pains to overcome, right? That this guy has already overcome. So if he gets you to a spot where people are healthy and you're ready to make a run, I think that I'd take the veteran there over the young guy, right?
And me and Gingy had this talk, and it actually came down, and I brought up this. As a younger person, especially in sports, I was willing to do stuff that I wouldn't do as an older person. There were silly things where I fought for a blade of grass that made no sense to fight for. As an older person, I wouldn't have done that. And this was my argument to Gingy, is these young guys are willing to do things that the veteran probably thinks better of, but the young guy's going to take that chance. He's going to make that throw to double coverage to Santonio Holmes in the corner. And this is what I brought up was Ben Roethlisberger. Look at him as a young guy, right? He's out there. He's winning games. He's taking hits he shouldn't take. He's walking off a game with Baltimore with his nose completely sideways. Old Ben didn't do that stuff. Yeah, he still took hits, but he didn't take hits like he did as young Ben. I think the reason the Steelers had so much more success with young Ben than old Ben is, yeah, the contract is part one, but part two is young Ben was willing to fight for that yard, fight for that inch, die for a blade of grass that, when you look at it from a grand perspective, probably didn't matter. But it's that attitude, it's that fight, it's that want, it's that desire. If you guys remember when Tampa Bay was in the Super Bowl a couple years ago with Tom Brady, I said, I really think the difference maker here is going to be all those veterans on that team who's never been there, never done that. The Ndamukong Suhs, the guys who are going to fight, are going to die, are going to do it all, because this is their once in a lifetime moment, where those veterans already had those moments. And it's not, I mean, yeah, winning a Super Bowl is winning a Super Bowl, but nothing is as memorable as the first time. Winning that big game the first time, getting that first big strikeout. The first is always the most memorable. And I think the youth of Justin Fields and that desire would be a bigger asset to the Pittsburgh Steelers than an experience of a older Russell Wilson.
I agree with that. I really do think that you're going to see a lot more fight from the young guys, because they want to win that first Super Bowl. They want to win that first game. They want to be the best they can be.
That's what I said. And I heard Gingy's side, and I don't disagree with him at all. I think understanding things, and sometimes, knowing when to check the ball down, knowing when a play's dead, yeah, that can be important. But at the same time, we're Pittsburgh Steelers fans. And Gingy, you know as well as I do, the teams that won Super Bowls for us, they weren't teams that did the things they were supposed to do. They were teams that made plays they shouldn't have been able to make, did crazy things at times, and maybe not that first year with, the Bettis-led, more defensive-based win, but certainly that Arizona Super Bowl, man, some of those throws that were being made are decisions when you look at them, and this, how many games have you gone to, and the whole stadium goes, Ben needs to throw the ball away there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can say what you want, but youthful Ben was the reason we won Super Bowls, and maybe the argument could be made that veteran Ben was the reason we didn't make runs at the end.
Yeah, it's possible that the team the way that Ben played football really hindered him at the end of his career. Like when he goes to the Hall of Fame, he'll go for a very specific reason, right? Not because he was the best quarterback overall, but because he played a very unique and successful brand of football for quite a few years. Got 2 Super Bowls out of it.
I mean, you're talking arguably the third best quarterback of a generation that had the 2 best quarterbacks in football history.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But this was the point I also brought up with Gingy, and I know contracts can't be taken out of the talk. And luckily with Russell Wilson, we don't have part 1 of the veteran problem, the big contract. So maybe he gets more of a leeway here on this. But the part I was talking to Gingy with is look at quarterbacks and who have had success later in their career after they've already been there, done that. I mean, Aaron Rodgers hasn't even been back to a Super Bowl since 2009. Roethlisberger didn't go back to a Super Bowl from 2009. I mean, Kurt Warner's probably the best example of a guy who did it as an older guy, but we never got to see a youthful Kurt Warner in football because he's too busy bagging groceries and playing in the AFL. So these veteran guys who are those big-time studs, it just seems like when they're younger is when the success happens. I'm not saying regular season success, because Russell Wilson is a great example of Ben Roethlisberger, right? But only 1 Super Bowl win because he threw away the second one. If Russell Wilson wins that second Super Bowl, his numbers, his career is very much Ben Roethlisberger, a quarterback who lived outside of the norm, a quarterback who had all his success in the early part of his career, and a quarterback who in the second part of his career won regular season games but couldn't find postseason success. I'm just scared, and Gingy, I'll let you go first before we get to Laskers to give Laskers the other half to think about here. I'm just scared that with Russell Wilson, the upside of this team is the 2020 Pittsburgh Steelers.
And it might be. I don't know what this is going to plan into with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, right? This might be some sort of ill attempt at a stopgap to keep that winning record going.
9-8, baby. That was my prediction for record on the season.
I think that's a good prediction.
It could be possible, right? We have a pretty dang tough schedule.
Yeah, we do.
There's anything
end of the year.
Yeah, I was going to say last 2 months, last 8 games. Brutal.
6 division games in Philly and Kansas City.
There you go. Christmas Day.
After a Saturday Baltimore game.
Oh, my donkey. They got to be locked in. They got to be healthy and locked in for a real run at that. Got to be heading into that. What do you think? 7-3? Have to be 7-3 heading into that.
What scares me is this is a team that can't have a slow start to the season. It's impossible. Yeah. If they have a slow start to the season, they're screwed. Because this is the part that kills me. So we have 2 short week games, which means we have long weeks after them, right? But 2 short week games, both of them are preceded by a game against the Baltimore Ravens. Like, that's just ridiculous. We play the Ravens on a Sunday, Cleveland on a Thursday. We play the Ravens on a Saturday, Kansas City on a Wednesday. That's nuts.
That's definitely nuts. I mean, that makes it really tough.
I'm not saying that this team can't be better than last year's team, both offensively and defensively, numbers-wise. I don't know if this team can win more games than last year's team. And it's purely because last year's team didn't play a lot of playoff teams. And when they did, they were in the NFC. And for some reason, we dominate NFC playoff teams, but we suck against AFC playoff teams that are not in our division. Let's start with that. And this schedule, man, it's rough.
If you're going to be bad, though, in the conference, outside your division is better than in. But I'm still worried about the Steelers' offense right now. Nothing really that explodes. Nothing really that pops.
Yeah, we have no wide receivers that really
We
interests
have
me.
like 6 wide receivers that all run in the 4-3s, okay? We have a track team full of wide receivers who are failures. I mean, we have Calvin Austin III, we have Quez Watkins, we have Scotty Miller. I mean, this is a track team worth of little guys who run fast.
And the guy that really can't throw the deep ball anymore.
Fair. I mean, our running backs are going to get a lot of passes this year. If you're in a PPR league, pick up a Steelers running back because Russell Wilson is the definition of captain checkdown. If you watched his last 3 years, that's the last year in Seattle and the 2 years in Denver. He'll either chuck it deep if it's one-on-one or he's going to go straight to a checkdown.
Yeah, that's fair for sure.
We need more over the top.
I don't disagree with you. I think this is my big question: is everyone wants to talk like this defense is going to be better this year? I'm not 100% sold because the schedule's harder this year. And if you look at what we did last year against teams who made the playoffs, our defense was god awful, something like 30 points a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to cut it with this schedule we have this year. And let's not forget here, and I'm not trying to be funny, I love TJ Watt. I think he is the most important player on this team, clearly. Whether or not he should be, different question. But he is the most important player on this team. He's turning 30 years old. He's already saying in training camp that he understands now and he feels like the old guy on the team. Maybe not because he's physically there, but because of what he is. And he's turning 30. Dude, name me a Watt that's past 30 years old and stayed healthy. And TJ's a guy who's been injury prone all but last year, probably the last 3 seasons he's played. Should I really expect back-to-back years of 17 games of TJ Watt?
No, you definitely shouldn't. And I agree that we've seen his brother, who basically almost played the same position, and he was so injury prone through his late 30s to the end of his career.
And what's scary to me is I believe JJ's first major injury, kind of like TJ, was a pec. I believe that's where it started with JJ too.
Indeed, I think so as well.
And I don't know. I want to be excited. It's that time of year to be excited. I mean, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of pieces I like. I'm still a little bit nervous about the fact that Dan Moore is still getting starter reps at left tackle while both Broderick Jones and Troy Fatanu have to fight it out at right tackle. When do the Steelers realize not only should you play your best players, but you should play your best players in the best positions for your best players? Because clearly the Kevin Dotson and Kendrick Green garbage haven't seemed to have gotten through to management yet.
Yeah, the Kendrick Green experience was bad.
Yeah. I think the Dotson one was even worse because he was really good for us. We moved him to a position he wasn't natural at. He sucked. We traded him. That team then puts him back in his natural position, and he's really good again. I can't get over that one. That's I don't know, Gingy. What would you call it?
What's the word I'm looking for? It is, well, let's make it simple. It's wishful thinking, really. It's not terrible ideas, right? Put into practice though, when they don't work, you got to cut losses. But we really push it the whole way when it comes to this position switch stuff.
Mm-hmm. And to young players not playing. Like, Gingy, I got an honest question for you. It has absolutely everything to do with last year. Do you think Broderick Jones ever sees the field if Chuck Okorafor doesn't mouth off to the coaching staff?
That's a good question. I don't know, Donkey. What do you think, Laskers?
I personally don't think he would have seen the field if that didn't happen.
That's the side I'm on too, and that gets me nervous that Dan Moore Jr., no matter how bad he is gonna be able to keep his job, whether or not it is deserved to be had, and that makes me nervous. Also, the fact that we're relying on either a guy who hasn't played center as a pro or a rookie to start at center again. Gingy. Tell me how this isn't the 2020 Pittsburgh Steelers. Which, by the way, 12 regular season wins is going to be exciting.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't know if I can, Donkey.
I just don't know if we can really get 12 wins.
It's very possible. This team could go on a run at the start of the season. And we're going to do a fun little exercise here, since I have you both here, to end this week's Nonsensical. So, Gingy, if you have any other topics, Laskers, if you have any other topics you want to touch on first, now is the time.
My only other one was the only person that we've seen that's done good through their whole career is Tom Brady. I mean, you can't deny what he's done for his through his whole career.
He's the greatest quarterback I ever saw. Peyton Manning also won a Super Bowl at the end of his career, but he played like absolute garbage that season. Kudos to that Broncos defense. Gingy, any last topics on your behalf?
Still looking for a number one wide receiver, Donkey. We need one bad before we start this. That's the one that's the only one that really comes to mind. It's within reach, Donkey. We need him. We need something out there to complement this.
Reach. I'd love me some pass fair DK Metcalf. All right, so we're going to go through. You guys are going to give me your wins, losses of every game this year. You don't get a chance to think about it. You just got to go off the cuff. We're starting week 1 Atlanta. Gingy, you'll go first, and I'll go to Laskers every week. At Atlanta, week 1.
Win.
All right, week 2, we're at the Denver Broncos.
Oh.
Revenge game.
Homecoming, revenge game, win.
I'm going to go with it on that one, too.
You guys are better than me on this. We have then the Chargers in Pittsburgh.
Loss.
Dang it, Gingy. I was going to pick a loss, too.
All right, we're going. Yeah, you guys are on the same page here. Then we go to next week, traveling to Indianapolis.
Win.
Loss.
We go then and have the Dallas Cowboys come to Pittsburgh.
Win.
I'm going to go with the win on that one, too.
Then we travel to the Vegas Raiders, and these are all Sunday games. That's why I'm not saying day of the week for them, by the way.
Loss. Typical Steelers loss.
Win.
My typical Steelers loss is actually later in the year. Then we have the New York Jets at home. Does Aaron Rodgers make the Jets good?
Yeah, win again, because Aaron Rodgers won't make it that far.
All right, then we have the Giants at home on our first Monday night game of the year.
Win.
Loss.
Ooh, Steelers losing at home on Monday night. That's rude. Then we have the bye week.
Rude.
We have the bye week, and we're going to the Commanders. This was the one that I picked as the typical Steelers loss, Gingy. What do you see here?
Off a bye week, though? Win.
Yeah, off a bye week. That's why it feels like a Steelers loss to me.
That's
everything
rude.
Going right.
That is rude.
Everything going right, and then bam, the Commanders.
Okay. Yeah.
Who's their quarterback this year?
What did you have, Gingy?
I had a dub.
Okay. Jaden Daniels, the kid from LSU. Third
loss.
Overall pick, or second overall pick. Then we have a Sunday game at the Baltimore Ravens. Home against the Baltimore Ravens.
Loss.
And then on Thursday, we go to the Cleveland Browns.
Win.
Then we have a long week to go to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, that is so rough. Win.
Yeah, at least it's a 10-day break between those.
Win.
And then we go ahead and play the Browns at home.
Loss.
Win.
Then we travel to the Philadelphia Eagles. And remember, the Steelers traveling to Philly is not pretty.
Loss.
To Kenny Pickett. And then we have the Baltimore Ravens at Baltimore on a Saturday.
Win.
Loss.
Then we get to have the Kansas City Chiefs come into Pittsburgh on a Wednesday for Christmas.
Win.
Loss.
Well, Gingy thinks we getting a Christmas present. Let's go, baby! And then we end the season at home against the Bungles with a to-be-determined time frame because it's week 18. We only play 17 games.
Yeah.
That's a loss.
Win.
Loss, win. All right. So I got Gingy going win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. That puts us at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That puts us at, that's 11-6, right?
Yes.
Gingy going 11-6 for your Steelers. Really close to the 2020 record, Gingy. I like your thinking. Laskers has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nice, Laskers.
9-8.
Laskers said he was going to do 9-8, and he did it off the cusp. That is impressive. Everyone, round of applause to
That
Laskers.
is impressive. That is impressive.
Because I didn't think about anything.
He wholeheartedly had no idea this was happening. I can tell you, he's jet lagged, he's tired, and he stuck to 9-8 like a champ. All right, I love it. I picked 9-8 too. I did it a lot different of a way than you guys. I had the Steelers having a 3-game losing streak early in the year. I think it was Denver, Chargers, Colts. I had them losing 3 in a row. I think really we'll be curious is that week 1 game to set the tone for the Steelers this year because you have new quarterbacks on both teams. Both teams have relatively talented rosters. A lot more changeover in Atlanta with a new coach like Raheem Morris, new offensive coordinator. There's a new offensive coordinator here in Pittsburgh. It's going to be really curious to see, and I think it's going to come down to which veteran quarterback is better adapted to their new setup is going to win that game.
Well, the question is Kirk actually going to start week 1?
That's a good question. Coming off injury, he should. I've seen pictures of him already taking snaps at OTAs, so I don't see any reason why he wouldn't. Unless you're telling me Michael Penix was a first-round pick because he's a stud and is just going to beat the pants off of Kirk Cousins.
So I was in Atlanta when he got drafted, and everyone at the Atlanta airport did not understand that drafting.
You don't spend $1 jillion on a free agent quarterback to spend a first-round draft pick on a freaking quarterback, Laskers.
I know, and that's what the people in Atlanta thought, too.
Especially not a top 10 draft pick, Gingy. A top 10.
Could have had the best tight end. Could have had a lot there.
Wasn't Roma Duze still on the board at that point?
Yeah, I think they were like the 6th.
Chicago.
Oh my gosh, Laskers. Me and Gingy talked about that, and I that to me is the dumbest draft pick I've ever seen. And it's not even if Michael Penix works out, it's still the dumbest draft pick I've ever seen because of how much money they gave Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I don't get that one. That wraps it up for me. I'm digging both of you guys' predictions on the records there. I have to take a quick look. Gingy had, what did he have them in division as? 1-1. I think you had him losing, 2-3 division games? 3-3 in division? Is that right?
I think it might have been 0-2 to the Bengals, 2-0 to the Ravens, and split with the Browns.
Yeah, I thought you had him at 3-3. That seems about right. Laskers has him 0-1 there, and then 2-3.
It's either 3-3
so he has
or
him at 3 wins, a double loss to the Ravens, 4-2. I think Laskers has him at 4-2. That's all right. I don't mean to laugh here because we did it different. Actually, I don't know how different. Yeah, a little differently because you have him losing to the Giants. Me and Laskers both though 9-8 and 4-2 in division. That's kind of cool. But I'll give it here. Any closing thoughts from either of you guys?
I got nothing.
I'm wrapped.
Gingy, thanks for showing up on a Saturday. Laskers, thanks for being in the studio. That's my shout-out for the week. Gingy, I'm not even asking. Laskers, do you have a shout-out?
Thank you for having me up here in Alaska. You know, this is the second time we've done the show in Alaska, and it's always been fun. And, you know, we'll probably do a show in Pennsylvania at some point. And maybe Gingy can even be in the studio for that one.
Hold
Laskers
up.
Giving out location of the Bat Cave. I
Hold up.
call it that. The Donk Hut?
I will do a shout out this week.
Ooh,
I have one.
Get it.
2026 draft in Yinzerville. Let's go.
I have totally forgot. I spaced that we never mentioned that on the show. I
Never
texted you guys
mentioned.
about it. Yes.
And I didn't respond because I'm not really sure I actually have any interest in going to the draft.
The draft coming to
I'm pretty
the
interested.
Berg. The draft coming to the Berg. That is
I'm
something
interested in
awesome
going.
to see.
Who's going?
If I could, I probably would, just because it's an experience you don't get to say very often. I mean, the last time the Steelers hosted the draft was the 40s?
I mean, Gingy, if you're going to go, I'll go, but it'll be like the first day. Other than that, I'm not going to stay for the whole draft.
I don't think I can go for the whole draft, but I'm interested, and that's an exciting thing for the city. Putting football's always relevant in Pittsburgh, of course, but putting it right back square on the map, baby. I love it.
What is it, like 300,000 plus people showed up to the first day of the draft in Detroit? Like,
yeah, it was ridiculous.
That's a lot of freaking people in one spot. That's nuts, though. But yeah, I'm going to just go ahead and let you know I'm the Viking Donkey. That's Viking_Donkey on Twitch and Twitter, the X. If you reach out there, I probably don't pay enough attention to ever look. So leave me a comment on the YouTube here. That's the Daily Dose of Donkey with Ginger. That's where you get all the fun content. That's where you get this nonsensical madness. And prediction for records before we even know what the team looks like. Yeah, that's how we do it. Laskers, go.
I'm the Laskers everywhere, and if you can't find me, well, that's too bad. Gingy, to you.
Mutant Gingy in the house. Football, nonsensical Steelers. Here we go.